So as I mentioned, our next presenter is Adam Weeks. Arriving from the world of education, Adam continues to teach and learn in the world of WordPress. Adam has a unique perspective to share as a connector between the WordPress community and companies wanting to grow their influence and impact in WordPress. Oh, and drones. Adam likes to fly drones as well. Adam's talk is titled Credibility Marketing. You have spent money on Google and Facebook ads, written all the blogs, created the content, and done everything possible to increase your SEO. But what comes next? How do you continue to grow? The answer is the answer is credibility marketing. It's one thing to say how great your company is. Hint, nobody cares when you do that. But it's another thing when a trusted personality does it for you. In this talk, we'll go over 5 ways to leverage the audiences of others and to use credibility marketing to grow your business. So without further ado, let's bring on Adam Weeks. Hello, Adam.
Hello, Miss Katie. It is so nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Where are you located in the world?
Well, I am in the Northern Hemisphere on the continent of North America in the United States, California, and if you are really specific, in between Tahoe and Sacramento, there's a little town called Auburn. If you're driving up to Tahoe, you could come and visit me there.
Got it. Perfect. Yeah, I'm kind of in the West too. I'm in the Phoenix area. So
nice.
I'm sure I could drive and it wouldn't be too far from you.
Not too far.
Awesome. Well, without further ado, I'll bring up your slide deck here and let you jump into credibility marketing. I'm really excited to learn as well. So here we go. Here's your presentation.
All right. Well, here we go. Thank you so much, Katie. I appreciate it. Yes, my name is Adam Weeks here at Cirrus Influence, and I'm excited to share with you credibility marketing. What better way to explain what that is? Because we have an issue of a definition of terms. If you ask 10 marketers what credibility marketing is, you'd probably get about 10 different answers. So let me explain to you as best as I can what that is with an example that happened yesterday. All right. So Adam Pressier, he is a pretty big deal in the WordPress community. He has, it's almost hitting about 250,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel. And yesterday he threw this on X, Twitter, whatever we want to call it. What do you notice in this Elementor renewal notice? And you will notice that this will expire in 4 months. Adam is a little frustrated here. He has taken to Twitter with a grievance about Elementor, and people started hopping in. Currently, when I took this screenshot yesterday, it was at 779 views. I think it's gotten well over 800, maybe 1,000 by now. Who knows? What is a company to do? Adam's a big deal. His opinion matters in this community. A lot of people learned how to use WordPress because of Adam's work. So let's see what happened. Miriam, if you don't know Miriam, you should. She is at Elementor. She is an incredible person. I have met her personally on a number of occasions at different events. And she jumps in this Twitter thread and says, this is actually not expected behavior. Our renewal notices happen once a month in advance, not 4. And she puts an emoticon, a crying face. I DM'd you with some questions so we can try to get to the bottom of this. Thanks. And because I knew that I was having this talk, I jumped in. I'm going to use this level of service as an example in my talk tomorrow for Stellar Spark. I want to be like Miriam when I grow up. Adam says she is next level awesome and the same in person. Aw, you guys. What's interesting about this interaction is if you wanted to pay for this as an ad, you really couldn't. It would be impossible. I don't know how much it would cost. What is at stake here? What are we talking about here? Again, I mentioned WP Crafter. Adam has 249,000 subscribers, 615 videos. And if you are, even one of his big videos here is an Elementor tutorial with 354,000 views. I mean, Adam is a big deal. How much would it cost for you to get to his audience? And his audience is a valuable one. This is an example of credibility marketing. This is really what it's one of the things that it's all about. And you say, that's great, Adam. That's helpful. Thank you. But maybe, what does it look like when you do it wrong? Oh, I'm glad you asked. Well, this morning, actually, no, this is yesterday. I've got a LinkedIn ad. Maybe you've gotten something that looked like this. This nice lady posts in my thread, and it does say sponsored. This is again July 18th. That was yesterday. Cheryl Napoli hops in. Adam, your background is intriguing. I think you might be a great fit for a CEO group in your area. Are you free to talk? Here's a link with more info. Warm regards, Cheryl. All right. This is not credible. And it's frustrating because even if I wanted to talk, when I click on anything, I can't actually click on anything. The only thing I can do is click more, and then I get sent to this Vistage homepage, which has this very nice UTM right at the top so I can see exactly what's going on here. And Cheryl doesn't really want to talk. This is a bot or something else, and it's sending me to a form to fill out. Because I was doing this talk and I was digging a little bit more, I hopped in and figured out what is this Vistage, and it turns out I'm sure it has been successful for many people, but this thing's about $10,000 to maybe $15,000 a year for people to join this CEO group. Cheryl clearly does not know who I am and does not think my background is intriguing. This is a bad example of marketing and is not credible. And just because I'm a glutton for punishment, one more example I got this morning, a text message. Want to make $2,000 to $50,000 every day? Send yes to join our exclusive blockchain group. You can see I did not do that, and I reported junk very quickly. This does not work. Actually, I want to be clear. It's not that this stuff doesn't work, because this company, Vistage, I assume that they're very successful. They have a budget to do this kind of stuff. Essentially, what I am saying is that I implore you to not grow your business in this shady way. It's not going to work over time. And if I ever come in contact with Vistage or anybody else like this, I'm unlikely to recommend them or do business with them. And one thing I do want to note, this interaction with Miriam and Elementor, at this moment, I did not purchase Elementor. I don't know if anybody else who saw this thread also purchased Elementor because of what Miriam did. She did amazing work. But it wasn't a sales pitch, and the likelihood that I need Elementor at the moment where I see this interaction is 0.00, very small. But over time, the brand that she is working to grow, Elementor, is growing, and I now trust Elementor that much more because of people like Miriam. She is authentic and she is growing her credibility for her company. All right. So where do we start, Adam? It's good stuff. Yeah, we need to do this. Where do we start? Well, know thyself. This nice big word here, introspection, is where we're getting started here. What is introspection? All right, well, what we're going to do is we're going to have a little activity. I'm going to have you follow along, type it out in the comments, and I will give you feedback if I can in real time or at the Q&A at the end. We're going to do something called a one-liner. This is a framework for your company, and it is going to help you know how to think about your company. If you do this activity, do it with me right now, open up another chat window, write it on a piece of paper, whatever it is. I want you to do this one-liner with me. All right. I'm going to give you an example in just a second. So what is a one-liner? It's problem identification. What does your product, what is your company, what problem do you solve? The trick is to pick one thing because you are likely to want to pick all the things. So we're going to get into something called feature creep in a while because it does this and solves this and this. Like, yeah, stop it. Pick the one thing, distill that into one thing. Number 2, what is the action that your company takes to solve that problem? And then this is so important. What does it feel like once that problem is solved? A lot of people miss this third and very important step. What does it feel like once that problem is solved? So let me give you an example. We'll go ahead and do Cirrus Influence because, well, it's what I know well. All right. So what is your one-liner? Really more of a 2-sentencer, but it's not as catchy. So what's your one-liner? In red here, we're going to start with the problem. Many WordPress brands struggle with visibility. So what I'm saying here is I'm trying to find empathy. I'm trying to find common ground. There's a good chance that someone that I'm speaking to, that I'm sharing about Cirrus Influence, understands this as a struggle. Yeah, it's decentralized. It's all over the world. How does anybody see my company? So I'm going to start with empathy. I get you. We work with WordPress influencers to help brands get seen. Let's keep it simple. Maybe you don't like the word influencers. Maybe it's content creators. You can work with this. It's not that once you have this one-liner, it has to be exactly this, but you will get better at it, more familiar with it. So in blue here, we have the thing that you do to solve that problem. And then in green, last but not least, and actually most importantly, how's it going to feel? What's it going to do so that they can grow their business efficiently, effectively? We can add different words. We can play with different things. Don't get stuck in there. But this is what I want you to do now. If you can type this in the chat, it's a good activity. Get it wrong, and we'll workshop it there. But type it in the chat. Write it down for your own. If you do this, you will have this introspection that I'm talking about, and it will force you to help you understand how people are going to think about your company, about your business in a positive way. All right. So let's keep going here. Let's talk a little bit more about introspection. You need to know what your differentiators are. How are you different than other companies that are doing similar things? What makes you special? Again, we got to know thyself. What's special about me? You need to know that. I'm not even talking about telling others about it yet. Just how are you different? And if you can't come up with anything, that is a problem. You need to figure out what it is. And one thing I'll give you, at some point, when our product becomes more of a commodity, let's take water, for example. How many of you have seen, there's different water brands, and they're trying to separate themselves, and there is, death water, and all these different brands, and it's water's water. But if you're going to separate yourself, it has to be some way in branding or communicating, being different. So what's your differentiator? This is stuff that you know. You need margin in order to be a good marketer. To have credibility marketing, you need time, money, and energy. If you don't have this in your business, it is going to be difficult to do credibility marketing. I do want to encourage you that everyone can do credibility marketing. This is not beyond. You don't have to be a company as large as Elementor paying someone like Miriam full-time to do that. It is something that you can do. It is within your grasp, but you do need to set out some time, money, and energy. There's this thing we talk about is that oftentimes founders, people who have products, they are busy working in their business. When do you work on your business? And you can only work on your business when you have margin. Do you have time to do it, the money to do this, and of course the energy to do this. All very important. All right, this is number 1. Let's go to number 2. I promised you 5. We're at number 2. Authenticity. Authenticity, authenticity, authenticity. Be yourself. I couldn't help myself. Whenever I think of this term, be yourself, it's Aladdin and the genie, and he says, just be yourself. That is the secret. This is the key. You gotta be yourself. You can't be someone else. Don't try to be something that you're not. People will see through it. It doesn't work. It's every time. Be yourself. All right. So you gotta be real. You gotta be a person. And you have to be confident. And you might say, but myself isn't a confident self. We often underestimate what we actually know. And this is key. This is important. I want you to remember this. It is difficult to remember what it's like to not know something. It's difficult to remember what it's like to not know something. And you may think all the things you know, of course, everybody knows them. At some point you didn't. And there's someone who is a potential client, a potential customer that doesn't know it. There are things that you know, you take them for granted. Be confident in that knowledge. So be real. Don't try to pretend. LinkedIn is chock full of this stuff. Be a person. Don't be mean. Don't be stupid. Don't be terrible. Don't. But please be a person and be confident. Authenticity. You have to be yourself. All right, we're at number 3 right now. This is exposure. Exposure. All right, now we're getting to it. So the first 2 were on the you side. You were paying attention to yourself. It was our introspection, our authenticity, your thinking about this stuff. But now we're going to start talking about how do you actually get out there? How do we have our brand get recognized? All right, so what I'm going to do is when it comes to exposure, I want to first teach you something with a lesson on how to avoid feature creep. And I'm going to do that with an example of a tale. I'm going to tell you a story of 2 remote controls. Everybody see these remote controls? This remote control you probably recognize. This one you probably don't. This is from a little company, a small company called LG. Actually, you've heard of them. This is a remote control, hold it a little closer, for a fairly cheap little one of those like Pico projectors. It's not very good. But there are so many buttons on this still fairly small remote control. And what I imagine is that when the engineers were putting this remote control together, they couldn't help themselves but put a touchpad on this cheap projector. Why do you need a touchpad on this? You already have this as well. There's a bunch of buttons here that I don't know why I would ever need them. And then these things, and sure, they all do something, and you can make an argument. An engineer can make a strong argument for why all of these buttons should be here, because they do stuff and they are functional. Let's compare and contrast. Apple, this is an old remote control of my old Apple TV. This is a very simple remote. They both have similar features to it. They're both trying to accomplish similar things, but this one had restraint. This Apple remote had restraint and said, I don't need to put every button under the sun. Our remote, this one, doesn't need a touchpad. It will only add complexity and will confuse people. We have a nice, clean design. We have fine, what every other remote is, clunky, complicated, does not stand out, confusing, doesn't get me excited about using the product. In fact, there are no batteries in this remote because the only thing good for this remote was when my son said the other remote control needed batteries. Feature creep. The engineers could not help themselves when they were putting this LG remote control together. So Adam, what neat. That's fantastic. How does this remote control story you are telling me, what does it have to do with my company? When it comes to exposure, you need to avoid feature creep. When it comes to exposure, you need to avoid feature creep. We tend to we have this moment where we're going to tell people about our product or about the thing we do, and we're going to say it does this. Shut up. Stop it. Stop it. Resist that urge to keep adding in your text, in your copy, when you are sharing about your company. Avoid this very strong desire to share everything that your product or your company does. Distill it down into one thing. And the beautiful part of this, if you said, hey, my product does 15 things really well, perfect. You now have 15 pieces of content, 15 separate pieces of content. Do not try and cram everything that you do. But it's great, isn't it? We know it's your baby. You made it yourself. Pick one problem to solve per exposure opportunity, and then zip it. Stop. Take a breath. This isn't your only chance, your only opportunity to get in front of people. This is the long game. This is over time. Avoid feature creep. It's really hard to do, but I encourage you, stop it. All right, how are we doing here? Let's talk about exposure a little bit more. So exposure, timing is really important. When do they want to hear from you? What stage of their journey are you on? Are you for brand new WordPress users, people who are just getting started, and is that who you're for? Or are you for professionals? Are you for people who have been doing this WordPress thing for a long time? Who is your client? Where are they? And then who has the trust of those customers? So profile your ideal customer, but it can do it for this, it can do it for pros, it can for beginners. Stop it. Avoid feature creep. Focus. Who has the trust of your ideal customer? Ideal customer, not your only, not like, don't, it's okay. Your ideal customer. Which media outlets in your industry have their trust? Where is the value? Where is the trust? And then I want you to write those down, create a document, and recognize who those are. We're going to get into a few of those. I'm going to give you some examples in just a little bit. Before I do, I want to talk a little bit about something called the communication matrix. As we're talking about exposure, there are 4 different methodologies which you can use for communication. And I'm a bit of a nerd, so we're going to use some nerd talk. All right. So we're going to use a little nerd talk here. This is my communication matrix. This is not unique to me, but I put it in this little slide to help you understand. Method of communication is on our left column here. Amount of data to be transferred between people. We're going to measure this in data. And then on the right side, our purpose of that communication. You need to know the reason why you're communicating, and then this will all make sense. We use text. Text is measured in kilobytes. An email, a text message, sharing facts. Facts. It's a great way to share facts is through the written word. Beautiful, lovely. But what happens when you need for people to gain clarification? Audio is a great way to do that. Podcasts, phone calls, megabytes of information are transferred via audio files. When you want someone to gain clarification about your message, audio is an excellent medium. When you want people to have an understanding, when you want to create understanding with someone, video is hard to beat. That's what we're doing right now. I have something somewhat complex to share with you. I could have done a credibility marketing blog. That would have been good. I could have done this on, simply a podcast only. That would have been good as well. But video, I'm able to show you pictures. You're able to see my face. We're able to interact a little bit more over video, and gigabytes are at this moment being shared across the internet over video. And that is to help. I want you to have an understanding of credibility marketing. And then in person is always best when you want connection, finding common ground. When you are trying to build a friendship, a relationship, terabytes are shared between people when they are in person. And that's really, really important. I'm going to get to events and the reason why we encourage events in a little bit, but it is essentially that is how are you not a cold call? How do you avoid having to do a cold call, a cold email, a cold outreach? It's because you know them. You met them in person. They're able to build a friendship, and you do that in person, which can be difficult when we're talking about WordPress that is all over the world, and we are in a decentralized ecosystem. That's why we encourage in-person events. All right, so this is still on number 3. We're still on this exposure topic. And what types of exposure can we expect? And again, we're going to focus on the WordPress community. Let's hop into the WP Awards. So as you can see, this is going to be coming up here pretty soon. Mark on your calendar, July 22, September 16. This is a time to be open for nominations. Then we've got open for voting, and then the winners are revealed right at the end of the year. This is one way for you to get exposure, is to win an award. And there's lots of awards. There's the Webbies. There's all kinds of different things in our industry. This is one that is accessible to you. And I encourage you to work with your marketing department or talk to yourself, talk to your coworkers, and make it a goal to get nominated. I encourage you to go and look and see if you can go to past award winners and see what it was that got them nominated, what people are saying about them, and then you can use that as you plan for being nominated. This is an excellent example. All right, what else we got? Review Signal. If you are in the hosting industry, this is one of the few ways that you have to have an authentic review of your hosting business. Kevin Ohashi is a good friend of mine. He runs Review Signal, and he has this very special hosting helper that will help people find the right hosting solution for them. But hosts will spend money for Kevin to review them. But what's incredible is that Kevin is transparent. He actually says on his website exactly how much each host spent to get reviewed. And then he will put that host through its paces, speed, security, safety, all those kind of things. And this is, again, another way for you to get exposure is by a company, an outlet like Review Signal. Review sites are fairly common, and this is no exception. Kevin Hoshi runs Review Signal. I highly encourage it. All right. This is post status. You may be familiar with post status. In all transparency, post status was really my entry into the WordPress community. I still help out in the post status community, whether it's with sponsorships or memberships. This is their list. If you want to be listed, you can pay to become a member and get listed on here. And I just clicked product to sort by product. And what did you know? Stellar WP shows up first. There it is. These are useful. They will cost. And there are lots of places out there to do that. This is the way that you can get on post status. If you're not familiar with post status, get familiar. It is billed as the business organization for the WordPress community, and their Slack is one of the most helpful Slacks around, especially in WordPress. But you can get on lists like this, and Post Status has one just for you. And there are very niche other outlets that you can get on. One of my favorites, you may guess why, is Do the Woo. I am a co-host. I co-host with Emma Young from Hostinger, and we do a podcast called Woo Biz Chat on the Do the Woo network of podcasts. I want this to be, I want you to be aware of Do the Woo. It is the only woo-focused podcast network out there. And there are a bunch of shows, and they're looking for guests. If you know the right people, you can probably get on a WordPress podcast such as Woo Biz Chat or one of the other ones. There's a lot of them out there. So Do the Woo, excellent community. This is another example. All right, let's do a couple more. All right, this is the Beaver Builder Slack. You can see that they're almost hitting about 6,000. They got 5,997. I wonder when they're going to hit 6,000. This is an incredible Slack. Exposure. Be visible on different platforms such as Slack. Post Status has a Slack. The WP Minute has a Slack. Do the Woo has a Slack. I encourage you. These are ways to get exposure. All right. In-person events. This is exposure, right? WordCamp US. I'd love to see who in the chat is planning on going to WordCamp US. I'll be there coming up September 17 to 20. You can still get tickets, I believe. Show up to WordCamp events. If you are not sponsored by a company, it may be expensive to get there. It's worth it. This is an important opportunity. It's like I said before, how do you avoid cold calls? It's because you meet these people in person. And you do that at an event like WordCamp. CloudFest is another one of my favorite events. That's in Germany, but they also have a US CloudFest. Show up at these events. It's really, really important. It's on how you're going to get there. Yes, Christian, Crayler Made. I just want to make sure that everyone knows who Christian is in the chat. Crayler Made. He is one of my favorite WordPress YouTubers, and he's doing incredible work. And he's the kind of guy that, will work with you. We'll talk with you about getting exposure. And it's really cool to see the work that Christian is doing, but he's there in the chat. And Crayler Made is a really good WordPress channel. And what was really impressive to me about Christian is, I'm going to talk about Christian for a second, is that he is showing up to these events. He's one of the few WordPresser, YouTubers that is going to these events. I met him at WordCamp US, and then we met again at CloudFest in Germany, and then again at CloudFest US in Austin. And he's showing up, getting to know the community. And his content is very much, for those entry-level people coming into WordPress. Christian has taught people how to use WordPress, and he has credibility with that audience. Again, one more just thing about Crayler Made and Christian is that I was working with him on a project, and the client said, "Hey, would be willing to pay Christian money to promote something." And Christian was like, that's probably not a good fit for my audience. And when Christian came back with that answer, his credibility with me and with the client I was working for went through the roof, because I could see that Christian wasn't going to sell out. He was going to value his audience and not try to promote something that really wasn't going to be relevant to them. As you are working with creators and influencers, make sure, and I'm going to talk about this in a little bit, make sure you know their audience, get to know their audience, and never ask them to promote something that doesn't match their audience. All right, so this is in person, WordCamp US. Be there. Be square if you're not. All right, repetition is number 4. We're at number 4, ladies and gentlemen. Number 4, oh man, I'm getting out of time. I got to go quick. All right, so play the long game. All right, you got to play the long game. Repetition, you have to know, you need that time, money, and energy that is required to do this over the long term. Repetition, repetition, repetition. And it's over time. Credibility marketing is something that's going to be over time. All right. Number 5 is also repetition. No, seriously, this is going to take a while. I put it as 4 and 5, repetition. We joke that, we talk about 7 to 17 times. The question, what is the likelihood that the moment that you see that post, that's going to be the moment that your customers are ready to buy? And you know this to be true, because how do you buy? And you might do we're going to do a thing, and then people don't buy right then. Like, this marketing stuff, it doesn't work. Credibility marketing is dumb. It's like, no, it's over time, over time, over time. This is how you build brands. So number 4 was repetition. Number 5 was repetition. But because I said I was going to do 5, let's do a bonus. Bonus time. All right, so here are some of the details. All right, this is what you guys have been waiting for, because let's get into it in these last few minutes. This is where you're going to be drinking from a fire hose, because we're going to talk about the how of credibility marketing. How do you do things like podcasts, YouTube, social media, public speaking? All right, let's get into it. All right, podcasts. Get a good mic. This is a good mic. Have nice lighting. Make sure people can see your lovely face. Even if it's an audio podcast, just do those things. Tell people on social media about your podcast episode. Add this episode that you're on to LinkedIn. Put those things out there. One thing you can do is your coworkers, make it a culture of your company that whenever your company posts something on social media that you're going to be doing something on a podcast, have them repost it, interact with it, make that part of your culture, but you have to be intentional. Practice your one-liner. That's a good place to be showing off your one-liner, is on a podcast when you're interview. Ask good questions of your interviewer. It's going to help them ask you better questions back. Bring value. Don't brag. Your product isn't for everyone, and that's okay. Your product isn't for everyone, and that is okay. Toastmasters is, I'm going to put a little shout out for Toastmasters. I am a member of the Placer's Gold Club. You can go on the Toastmasters website and become a member. It's not that expensive, and it's a really good way to help you communicate and be more confident in your public speaking. It's a really good investment. I am not, other than just being a member, they're not paying me to say this. Go to Toastmasters. All right. YouTube. Search for YouTube content. How? In the way that your potential customers will be searching for YouTube. So what types of keywords, if they were looking for you, what is that? Identify those creators, subscribe and interact with their content authentically. It's not a place for you to sell your stuff. Just ask them good questions, engage. Reach out to those creators on the various platforms and interact with them there. So if you see a YouTuber, talk with them on Twitter, just like I was doing with Adam Pressier. That is a way to work on YouTube. All right, social media. You know this, nothing surprising here. Be intentional. Ask your coworkers to follow you and repost, interact with your content. Add value content. That is how you boost your influence. Pay attention to the people that are doing it right. Who are you a fan of? Who do you really like? And then interact with those posts. Ideally, those are people who are also in this community. Public speaking. Number one, say yes, just do it. Go to the events, show up, make friends with the speakers. Here's a little bit of meta. I've been thinking about this talk for months. I've been nervous about it for weeks and terrified of it today. If you said Adam Weeks is someone that I would like to know more about, if you get on social media and you say a nice thing about my talk, I am going to be super excited. People don't do that as often as they should. And it's a quick shortcut to getting connected, even with big CEOs of big companies. If there's someone who is doing something after their talk, comment on that YouTube video, comment on that podcast, and you will get their attention. All right. Make sure you subscribe to event newsletters so you'll know when the speaker calls are going out. And WP Speakers. My friend Michelle Frechette has created this incredible resource called WP Speakers. I have my little profile here, and it's an excellent thing that you can do to share with others. People can find you on WP Speakers. So that has to do with, getting out there. All right. Get to know the WordPress media. I have an even longer list of this if you want to come and talk to me. There are so many cool people doing cool things in WordPress that are teaching, that are building community. The WP Weekly, that's where you're going to find the awards that are coming up. WP Tavern, not a lot is happening on the Tavern these days, but hopefully soon. WP Minute, Matt Medeiros, freaking awesome. Poodle Press, Jamie Marsland, an incredible YouTuber. I could go on and on and on. Get to know the community. The result, what happens when you do credibility marketing right? More sales, confident customers. All right. Well, that is more than you bargained for. I went over time, 1,000 apologies. The result, more sales and confident customers.